Yes.
Yes.
Woo. We have
Sorry,
a
I
we
didn't
have a
see your live.
connection.
I didn't see your live. I wasn't. I couldn't see you.
You couldn't see me.
No, I couldn't see your live. But anyways,
Okay. So are we okay? Are you
I am.
listening? Everything
Yes, I
is
can hear you.
perfect?
Everything is perfect.
So, Alberto, thank you again for accepting our invitation to share this beer. Well, maybe I cannot promote brands.
I don't have beard. I
You
don't
have
have
a
beard. I have a
baby.
baby. I have a baby.
That's even better.
No,
So
but
thank you
Larissa
and
is.
Basurama for for being here and for taking half an hour at least to talk and to share some thoughts with us and with some of the people here.
Thank you for
So
inviting. Thank you
let's
for
start
inviting.
this.
Yeah,
How
let's
are
go.
you?
Let's go. I
Feeling
am.
well?
I am healthy, but I am not sane myself because here in Spain the
But
situation is really well. It's getting worse somehow. Of course, the death toll is now only
mhm,
around 200, which is still a lot, a lot. I mean, we are over 27,000 deaf people, which is a lot. It's a lot.
it's a
I mean,
lot.
it's also really difficult to understand why things are here so nasty now. It's not that people is getting together and embracing each other and saying like, all right, I understand your sorrow, I understand your pain, I understand what we have been going through, but not at all people is criticizing each other. It's big problem for me myself in terms of psychological questions. The fact that people is looking for what divides us constantly here in Spain,
Yeah.
especially with kids. My kids have been locked down at home for 10 weeks now, 9 weeks.
Oh,
No,
it's a
no, no,
lot.
no. Today is 10 weeks, yeah. And of course, they have been going crazy. And we have been involved in, since we're very much interested in kids, we have been involved in a number of movements regarding how kids could be allowed out, how could they be allowed playing in the parks. And it's not that we haven't succeeded in having the kids out until 10 days ago, but also we have noticed, which has been really, I don't know, really nasty. The word is nasty for us, that many people hate kids. We knew that, but feeling that in your skin is something really, really dramatic. Because for us, kids are subversive, are very important for the city life. And actually, kids can teach us how to go out of the situation. And well, actually, they can teach us how to live and how to play and how to use the city. So the fact that people is happy having them locked down at home really makes me sad. Really makes me sad. And we have been.
Do you think it's kind of a way of making it easy for them? I mean, easy to rule a country if you just lock down everybody, no? Maybe.
Definitely, the Michel Foucault theory says that the best city for the power is the city with a lockdown. Definitely.
Yes.
The perfect city is the empty city. And indeed, some architects have been promoting these ideas using the magazines, pictures, without people for many years. At least all this, well, actually, all the 20th century and 21st century, the architecture magazines, photos don't have any people at all. And indeed, there's a massive change for me now that every time I look photos without pictures without people, now I understand that something must have happened in that building. There might be a pandemic or a bombing or something, because it's impossible. I mean, now we cannot see anymore an empty city and think it's something desirable. The same goes with kids. I could understand, or we could dream in Basurama, that after not having kids in the streets, people will be happy to see them because they laugh and they run and they kiss each other and they are, playful. But in the contrary to that, people is hating them. So I understand that people dislike kids because they are lively somehow, because they are very difficult to control.
Yeah.
And And for us, that's the most interesting thing, that they cannot be controlled by adults, by theories, by the police, or by a lockdown, because people having kids have been having much fun with their kids at home. People is inventing all kinds of games, toys, sports, quizzes. I mean, really, the creativity around kids at home has been really fantastic. So I think it's a question of, again, like, if we don't look at kids, we're gonna be sad. You know, people is gonna be down. And
we're gonna talk about that. I just put some topics to talk, and one of them, you know, that this the playground for
I know
for big kids.
We understand. We will move on to that. Yeah. But I mean, that's my general feeling. That's my general feeling. That was like the.
That's your. Sorry. That's your.
That's my general feeling these days. The introduction was about it.
I think it's also like we are also feeling here, and here it's quite more easy. Not easy, but quite more calm our situation in Portugal. But we are also feeling here that, I mean, professionally and also personally, everybody's getting to this point that psychologically some things you start to feel some things, because it's been a while and there's a lot of things that you are not able to do and to feel. So it's maybe we'll have another wave of health crisis, but it's going to be the psychological health crisis after this.
In the States, there has been a very interesting movement that says "Stay safe, stay sane," which means this is my wife taking away my baby.
Hello.
I was happy with her. Maybe she wasn't that happy. No, the thing is, like, stay safe, stay sane. That, I think, is a very important question, because of course everybody is going to move into safety nowadays after the COVID. And in Basurama, we hate safety. It's not that we hate safety. We dislike the way safety is used as a way for controlling people. And I think people should.
It's like an excuse.
It's also an excuse and a technique.
It's like an excuse to control people, no? You see it a lot, like in playgrounds and these kind of things that are like completely experience proof. So you cannot experience anything. You just have to be like following the rules.
Yeah, but also not only because the rules. It's something that we have been very much interested in this for many years, and actually Basurama, regarding like somehow the questions you wanted or you proposed, Basurama started looking at waste. Basura means waste in Spanish. We started looking at that because we wanted to see reality or things the other way around. That is, it's not that you look at the good things and refuse what is bad, but if you look what is supposed to be bad, which is waste, you are going to be able to look what is supposed to be good in a very different manner. And that's why we started working with waste, to see the world
from
like,
the other perspective.
Yes.
But how? I know that you started after university, like a bunch of friends. It's always like this. It's always how it started.
Yes. We were actually the people at uni that were not interested in architecture somehow. We were.
Okay, that was my question. But my question was why do you start it like this? Because you are now a teacher. You are now teaching in the university, so you've been on both sides now. So you know that you're not educated to actually start by looking. I mean, in our example in Basurama, you start by looking by another perspective, and normally this is not how you are teach in the university. So why did you start it like that? Do you think that like after, I don't know, more than 10 years now, um, why do you think you started like this? It was just because there was a group of people, of friends that didn't connect with the stuff that you were facing by the time?
Well, actually, there have been so many theories of why Basurama started, and I like this theory best, which means we were the people who we wanted to meet at uni. We were told our background, our family backgrounds is really lower middle class or lower class from Spain. Many of us is first generation of people going to university in the families, and second generation the most. But I mean, my grandpa was a taxi driver, and many others Basuramas grandpas were workers or workers or from tiny villages in the middle of nowhere. And for us, we were warned, we were somehow celebrated that the uni would be a fantastic place where many people you meet are going to be exciting. And we went into Madrid Architecture School, and it was really, really. And it's still very boring, which is it's a pity because I'm a teacher now, and I have to admit it's as boring or more boring than when I was there. And it's difficult to engage with the students to not make a boring school being a teacher, because the kids must be the one creating the fun, definitely. And so for us, we always say that we started Basurama because we needed it, and we put together everybody, and we started a huge collective that was called 36 square meters, which is the size of the minimum, dwelling first competition, 36 meters. And we liked that number, and we put everyone together. People interested in politics, in urban design, in parties, in doing events, everything. Everybody was invited, and we put everybody together. And from that huge collective, that was basically the union of boring architects or architects who don't want to get bored. Many collectives evolved from there. And we, for example, we started doing the cinema club as well, with the musical festival, the parties at the uni. We were taking care of them, 3,000 people parties, I mean, huge parties. And we started it because we needed it. It's not because we wanted to do something to other people, but basically for us. And that two ideas, like look things from the other side of view, from the other point of view, from the other side of the road, and doing something that you need, is basically a good summary of what Basurama could be somehow, you know.
Okay.
Do things for you. It's not being selfish, but definitely don't think you're gonna be good for somebody else if you're not good for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And try to look things against the wind.
And how that involved, how that it started from there and went to a point that you are a collective that continues to have projects to pay some salaries to some of the members at least. How it went like this? Just to close this part.
Big amount of luck. Definitely. Yes, indeed. Big amount of luck. But nowadays, with this crisis, of course, we recall very frequently the fact that after the housing bubble crisis in Spain, 2010, 2011, many people came to our studio asking, how did you do to survive the crisis? Many people. I mean, older guys, emerging studios, like many people. And of course, we are not architects, so we don't depend on building industry on one hand. So we don't need that part of economy. But also because we make a huge diversification of our economy and our clients. That would be like the technical question, like the theoretical question, like diversify your clients. How did we diversify our clients? Because we always thought Basurama is a good place for personal projects, which means, are you interested in music? Let's do a project with music. Are you interested in radio, in poetry, in photo, in maps, in data, in schoolyards? All right, we will take the collective to that place. And that has been a very good key for being alive, like moving into into the members' interests and not bringing the members into single interest.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, we say that we are a bunch of people that get together for making projects. While there are other places, like a company, that look for people to make projects they want. No, we are the people, and we look for them. And after this crisis, what are we going to do? I don't have a single clue.
You're going to do projects with the masks? So many now.
We are working in reusing gloves. But apart from that, we will definitely, of course, we are always on our time. We are always on our reality and our context. For example, the thing we are most interested in now.
Can you get a little bit closer? Sorry, Alberto. Just because I'm losing a little bit of your voice. But let's
what we are more interested in now is schoolyards. So for us, how could we evolve after the crisis? We would love to focus in schoolyards. How to make schools where kids can go and can be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
We don't mind of moving to that place. So for us, it's a good key of how to deal with crisis. Like a crisis should change you, must change you. Otherwise, it's not going to be a crisis. Once you're changed by that crisis, move over to the place where you are after that crisis. So whenever the crisis is over, we will get together again and say like, all right, what are we going to do now? What the people
what are we going to know?
And I think it's a good advice.
And what about, like, for me, it's very interesting, this the fact that there's two things that are quite funny. The first one is that Basurama always says that you are not a collective of architects or architecture collective. But in another way, everybody around you recognize you, such as collective that do architecture. For me, it's because you play around with space and people and cities. So there's no other name for that, at least until now. So people use architecture. So this is sorry.
We don't have many architects in the collective.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was saying it. But this is one thing that's quite funny. The other thing is that then you, for instance, I don't know if there are more members of Basurama that also do it, but you are a teacher in the University of Madrid of architecture. So it's the second funny but actually very interesting thing. And on that part of like teaching, in a way, or being part of a university, for us here, it's in Portugal. Like architecture it's about solving problems that have a lot of complexity, a lot of different things, not always the same, always different. So for us, it's obvious that we should question a lot. We should prototype. We should experiment. We should bring other people than just an architect to actually be able to answer to that problem. But ironically, especially here in Portugal, I don't know so much in Spain, but I more or less feel that it's the same. In the university, there's like this kind of mission to pass a standard solution to how to practice architecture. It's kind of like there's this traditional, typical way of doing it. So you are a teacher now in the university. How do you think it's possible to give this degree of freedom to the students that will become an architect, that can actually destroy in a good way a little bit this system and make them professionally critic to a city, to what's actually happening? How do you see it?
I think the two questions can be answered with the same reason from two different points of view. The fact that architecture has grown so big and so wide in the last century, in the 21st century, allows them to involve very many things. We have been working as well with sustainability and environmentalism and arts. Both arts, architecture, sustainability or environmentalism have been going through massive changes in this 21st century. Art has gone really narrow, very narrow. The art market is narrower and narrower because it couldn't find clients to buy works, participative works, spatial works, and still our friends and co-artists from the same gallery. We have a gallery, an arts gallery who we work with in Madrid, important art gallery. The artists we work with in the same gallery, the people who are successful are painting paints. That's great, I love painting. But none of these social practices are allowed into the art. Sustainability has become super mega mainstream. Everything is sustainable. So it is so wide that it cannot embrace anything, basically.
Yeah.
But
you open too much the net, so everything is passing now.
Everything is passing. I mean, cars are sustainable. Fuck you. While architecture has become wide and open-minded, which makes us easy to fit because our practices that are sweaty, that are live, that are alive, that are wide, that ask many people, that include many techniques and many different agents and stakeholders, would only be called architecture. It cannot be called art because art doesn't want us in its market. And it couldn't be called, I don't know, social practices or all those names that are also so abstract now that are very difficult to embrace. So architecture became somehow a space, a place where things that are alive, that are sweaty, could fit. Maybe that's the reason why people call us architects. We're not. And how to teach people? How to teach people? Because architecture is so wide, it's very easy for me to stand up in front of architects, of students, first year students, first day of class. You are 18, or you are not even 18, and a yelling bastard tells you, you are not going to make any buildings. I haven't. Architecture is not about buildings. Everybody goes like, "Oh my God, there's no one on the steering wheel. Who's on the wheel?
Who's this guy? Who's
this guy?
I want to change.
Who let him in? But I teach with a 60-year-old guy who's been teaching 27 years in the school, who is a big master for many students, has been selected as the best teacher many times, and he insists architecture is not about making buildings. Kids go like, what the fuck? But I mean, what am I doing here? And then we move on to the best news ever. 50% of jobs of tomorrow are not taught in any school at all. We must invent the school that educates those professionals for those jobs. I mean 3D printing. I mean cloud computing. I mean blockchains. I mean social practices. I mean complexity in all its forms. I mean logistics. I mean putting materials on top of each other. And I always say it's much easier putting a brick on top of a brick and find the money to do that and find the fundings and find the laws and find the frame for that than doing all the complex questions that happen in the world. But only architects are professionals who are capable to do that new complex situations. For example, many architects are involved in terrific questions regarding coronavirus. Doctors, of course, engineers, of course, software people, mathematicians, but also architects, who can really manage a big amount of complexity, material, techniques, finance, society, science, I don't know. And so for me, that's the best, I mean, for me, it's the best time for teaching architecture because I don't have any clue about buildings. So if buildings, I'm fucked up.
You don't know what to say.
I don't know what to say. So, I mean.
Well, I hope that is inspiring some students from the university to actually come out of this idea of what they should do being an architect. That, in my opinion, is still quite narrow. The way you actually go to the university, you go with one or two things in your mind. That's it. So
I don't know. I don't know what kids have in mind when they start studying architecture.
I mean, I remember the one of, like, I got a professor like maybe like you in my first day of class, that he throw us a poem to our hands and said, like, read this poem and do a project with just emptiness and massive material. That's it. And I was like, okay, this is I'm in the wrong class. I'm in the wrong class. And today I still feel that it was one of the professors that inspired me the most. So I hope that there's more of those.
But I have to say one thing about education that I like a lot. In Basurama, we are obsessed with the idea of we cannot educate anybody else to be Basurama. In Basurama, it's not a question of originality, but our mistakes are ourselves.
Yeah.
The new Basurama is going to be something else at all. So don't follow our path. Make your own path.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, you are doing the same. So you are saying. I mean, I don't know if you got that, but sometimes when we go to a conference or something, and we are talking about our projects, and there are some students there, and they come in the end and say, I really want to do like you do. You are so different, whatever you are, and we always say the same. It's like, don't change A to B. It's like, just there are options. Just find your own way of doing it. It could be similar to us or not. It could be even better. I think it's also a student thing that you always you are always looking for a reference to. It's how you go there somehow. You just have to be critic to.
It's not a question of reproducing forms that, for example, for us, Raumlabor in Berlin are a massive reference. We always look at them and we like them a lot. It's a question of understanding how things are done, how processes are done. So, for example, for this coronavirus thing, students come to me and say, like, what can we do? It's like, what are you doing? No, I am studying a lot. Forget about studying. That's not a good thing, definitely. That's number one. But after that, what do you want to do? No, I want to get together with my friends. All right, do that. I mean, it's impossible. I have to do something else, something big. And I go, like, start from your little path. Because the other things that are happening in school now is like people designing hospitals. What the fuck? I would take it seriously. I mean, still architects do buildings. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. When we have all seen that hospitals are conference centers. At least Madrid has been a massive conference center with, I don't know, movable walls or panels, which is ridiculous. I mean, no building is going to fix coronavirus. So what else can you do? Well, live, create another society. Be your own society that it's after COVID. Hospitals are not, can be designed.
Especially because they are now throwing this exercise of building an hospital with the same methodology or tools behind all the other hospitals that are already done. So it's
ridiculous. It's like,
it's just going to end in the same corner, more or less. I really wanted to talk about this the playground. It was Brazil, no? The playground for kids from 0 to 99 years old. It was Brazil in the project, right?
We made one in Brazil and another one in Japan.
Okay. No, it's just that for us, it's a very interesting process. And also, it's very simple, this idea that adults can play. It's so simple that it could even look ridiculous, but in another way, it doesn't happen anymore. So we are taught to work, produce, consume what we produce. That's it. That's an adult life. get some money, pay your bills, that's it. Don't fool around. But it's funny, like when we do projects that are open to participation, like in a neighborhood or something like this, you actually see that adults really they are really interested in play, like with space and test stuff and work with their hands and actually be like have a kind of a freedom to actually test things, you know, like to play around with the things that they are doing. So like and for us it's very clear that this is a very important thing when you are making, for instance, when you are making city or when you are making like public common space, to be able to have this kind of informal ways of curating things with an adult. It doesn't have to be with a kid. So what do you think, like do you also think that this is I mean, you did a project regarding this. Of course there's an interactive fun side of it, but it's also an important, I would say even political thing to provoke, no?
Well, indeed, for us, it is not only a provocation, which is, and it's a way of having fun. Again, as I said, in 2001, when we started, we needed what we did. I mean, it's not that nobody's organizing the festival. All right, let's organize it. And of course, we will do our festival. We will not do for anybody else. And playing and being able to play has been a massive force in the collective, at least from 2010. For the last 10 years, it's been a massive influence. Subversion, playgrounds, play. And now, for example, in this coronavirus crisis, we see the full potential of this statement of how kids and adults play together. It's not only a question of playing in the streets, which is something that we cannot forget, but also a question, as Isabel Stengers, that I wrote her name in the comments, Isabel Stengers said that against infernal alternatives, the way she calls it, for example, the alternative is like, you destroy economy or you kill people. That's an infernal alternative. She says, we must walk paths. We must inhabit other solutions. That means we cannot design them a priori and put them to work, and it will work. Right. In this crisis, we have to get away from infernal alternatives, because it's a big problem that we're having around the world, that we cannot find new paths to walk. I don't mean new solutions, I don't mean new projects, new programs, but paths to walk together. For example, this question of adults playing is very useful for saying, like, don't worry, it's a play, it's a game. Mm-hmm. You don't have to win. You must play.
You can do a mistake. There's no problem with it.
For example, kids mount and dismount constantly. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult for me to play Lego with my kid, because he doesn't want to stay in a given shape, in a formal form, for more than 2 seconds. Oh, it's,
of course.
He stays the game, And for that feeling, we must learn from kids how to solve this crisis with that dynamics. It's not that we must find a super nice solution that blah blah blah, but let's walk together. And walking together includes respect, which kids have always to others. For example, kids don't jump into other kids' heads ever. They wait in the slide. They wait in the swing. Never. They can fight for things, of course, but they respect each other. They somehow collaborate constantly. Even if they fight, they are somehow linked. With many adults are not linked anymore, because they don't recognize the existence of the other. They don't have fear of mistaking, and they don't mind building and rebuilding. So that 4 questions that are completely central to play should be applied now for getting out of this situation, of this crisis. Apart from playing with your kids or playing with your wife, that will be like.
We are actually now trying to start this idea that for now we are calling it urban reaction. We'll we'll share some things in the next days. That is a little bit about this. It's like, because there's this thing, okay, how public space will be with the social distance and all of this. So we are actually saying, okay, get the blue tape and start to play with it and see what you can do. And then, I mean, you test, you do whatever you want on the streets. It's just a paper tape. You take it out, that's it. And it's an idea that we are trying to bring up to a more like public perspective. So, because we don't want to be just us doing this, we want actually for like normal citizens to actually be able to grab this tape and think, okay, I'm gonna play and I'm gonna do whatever design, whatever I want here, because it's just paper tape. It will vanish with wind or rain. So we are trying to actually use a little bit of this COVID situation to be an excuse to say to the people, get this tape and play around, do whatever you want, design a new bench or a new street just for a day, and then you'll see. Maybe you'll find a better way of doing it.
But that project, what I like best about it is the fact that reminds us how volatile our situations are. We were taught everything was stable, capitalism isn't going to be destroyed ever, cars are something taken for granted. Everything was vanished this in 2 months, like in 2 months.
It was like bam.
We're working.
It was like it was like if somebody was saying, you cannot, so see, bam. Now say you don't.
What was unthinkable became unavoidable.
Yeah.
What was unthinkable became the must. Like, you cannot move. I mean, it's impossible to control people. Bam.
Bam.
And we are working in those terms. We are working on proposing a situation for kids to play on the streets without the objects, without the games.
Without the swing and the
swing and the slide. So actually, to create somehow walking and playing itineraries that do not need any objects. For us, it's really important the idea of informal, of the informal, because waste is informal. The way it is dealt is informal, and the informal workers are informal. But also somehow play is informal. Doesn't need forms to be shaped. And the public space in general is informal. It has shape.
Or it should be.
It is.
It should be.
It is. Even if regulated,
yeah.
even if controlled, there are
always. In the end, it's always, of course.
There are always people inventing things. And so, from my point of view, getting rid of objects, because objects keep the virus, is such a good chance. Let kids play on the street without any objects. Let's get rid of the torture games. Let's get rid of them. So we are actually.
And also this idea, I think it's also interesting that this idea that, I mean, I feel it personally that over the years, like I used to play on the street. That's it. Like there was no place to play. It was like on the street. I was playing with my friends. One day we were doing a football match. The other day we were doing like a bicycle competition with the track. I mean, we were playing. But then over the years, there's this kind of idea that, okay, if you want to play as a kid, you should go to that specific place. That's the place for you to play with those objects, like you were saying. If you want to play football, it's not here. You have to play football on a football field. So let's build one for you. So this kind of destination for everything with COVID is quite funny, because now you said you can go out and play, but all of these spaces are actually closed.
Well, you must.
So the other day I was seeing a guy playing tennis on Alameda here in Lisbon. It's like this kind of like a big open space, public space, like a huge avenue, like a square, and a guy was just playing tennis against the wall, like really into it, you know. It just assume, okay, that this is a nice place to actually doing my thing. So I think that this is actually an opportunity, as you are saying, to push people to do this.
This, we're definitely proposing a project for UNICEF Innovation Lab regarding this. Close the streets for traffic and allow them for kids. Like maybe the streets are for cars in a time, and the rest of the afternoon are for kids. And kids use the whole public space for playing, and they will find their games somewhere.
Yeah, of course. That's the funny of it. It's funny that you now talk about this, because it resembled me another thing that I don't remember if it was an article or if it was a kind of a lecture that you or somebody from Basura did, but you call it, in case of emergency, build your own city. So this is we grab this, and this is quite funny to think now with this situation. It's because of what you're saying. It's not like when somebody is taking out the city from the citizens, they are not taking the buildings and the fancy expensive materials of the buildings or wherever. They are just taking the human possibility of using those spaces. That's how you close a city. It's not closing the buildings or whatever. So that's why now that you can start to go out, you still have people doing stuff, even though the buildings for tennis, like I said, it's closed. They are still playing tennis. So it's funny also, if we relate to what you're thinking or what you're saying about students, like the architects normally think about designing the building. That's it, nothing else. But the thing is not only on the material, is on everything else, is on the people that actually use those spaces or whatever. So how important is this for the city? I think it's the key thing for the city. No, it's if you continue to design buildings without people, like the pictures that you were saying, then you are missing the point somehow. No, because that's not the city. That's maybe just a very
stones.
It's porno architecture or something like this. I don't know.
They're stones put on top of each other.
Yes, that's it.
As Karl Marx said, solid vanishes in the air. And
sorry?
Solid vanishes in the air.
Yeah.
The last phrase of Das Kapital. And we have seen all the solid things vanishing in the air in the last months. But I would say, I do ask my students to start the renders from the people. Because if we have a photo without people, we definitely have people without a photo. They are somewhere else, you know. If the building is empty, they should be somewhere else. So start drawing the people. Do not draw the lines of the building, but draw the people. What is the people doing there? Who is going there? What are they doing? And from there, create a shell for them, like that guy playing tennis there. So in case of emergency, make your own city was an idea or a motto or a summary of what happened after the crisis in Spain. There was a massive belief in the first decade of the 21st century that everything could be designed and built, while the crisis demonstrated that, of course, you don't need anything. You cannot count on the devices, processes, fundings, institutions that actually put the stones on top of each other. You have to do your own city. But after the COVID or after the coronavirus, we must definitely think what is the most important thing to do first. And for me, I would say, and I've been discussing this with a few friends now, we must lose the fear to the other. We cannot be fearful to the other. We must think everybody else can help me. It's not that everybody else can infect me, but all of them can help me, can take care of me. And from that point of view, from that links, very many new things are going to be created. Like all the care networks, all the self-help, all the mutual help networks that have been created in Spain, well, of course, they are obvious. They are happening in any situation. I don't know, tsunami in Thailand or I don't know, earthquake in the States. They happen everywhere. But what is going to happen after that? What is going to happen in next year or in 2020?
Yeah, of course. And somehow how you use it to continue, like, so, because when you have a situation like this, of course people come together more to support each other, but shouldn't we continue these kind of movements, because we cannot stop them, or we should not stop them?
What can we do with them?
Yeah.
When the virus is gone, we have been broadcasting here on radio in my courtyard, in my neighborhood courtyard, 84 neighbors, and we created basically with that radio an emotional fabric, because knowing that the guy you have never say hi in the streets or in the doorway is also a fan of Pearl Jam, like you are, really makes you think he's somebody who can help you, somebody like you, not an enemy, not an infectious, not a bastard who doesn't wear a face mask. No, but somebody who's also a fan of Pearl Jam. With that emotional fabrics, what can we create? What city can we create? And of course, what kind of tennis courts and benches and bars and parties we can create, definitely. But what else? What new institutions that we cannot think of? I mean, health institutions. What is going to happen with the health institutions? Are we going to still think, I can do my life and the hospital will take care of me? Or must definitely focus in the health? And what means community health in terms of a space, in terms of city? In terms
and also regarding the healthers, like these the institutions to support healthers, that now it really comes up this situation. No, it's maybe it's not so one way as it was, as we thought it was before, because now this starts to actually bring it up a little bit.
The dream of creating communities and mixed ages must be somehow accepted.
On our first talk, we were talking with Manu from Zulwark. You know Manu, and he was saying that for them it's the answer it's already always in the city. The problem is that sometimes we don't find it, or we are not looking on the right spot. So I think it could be a little bit of, or I suppose it could be a little bit of this. We just have to actually be more aware of where is it, so we can actually grab it and use it in a good way.
I would say regarding this that we must learn to recognize a unicorn. Yeah, there are unicorns everywhere. But if we insist that the unicorn is a horse, they don't understand it's a unicorn.
Then it's a lot of horses. That's it.
But there are unicorns all the time. All the time there are things happening. All the time. And for us, the most interesting, the most important verb for now is listening. How to learn to listen. Architects must learn to listen, to hear, to understand what is happening. You must learn to listen. And it's a very difficult thing. But from waste, if we look from the waste to the product, I mean, against the grain, the other way around, it's easier to learn how to listen.
Do you think, like now that you talk about the waste, do you think, like, I mean, for instance, waste, it's always related with also like with the sustainability of our society nowadays, with all the movements that we are all trying to do to like politically, even to create a more sustainable solution for cities and stuff. Do you think that somehow now people are actually able to see that if something it's key, it's really, really important, governments can actually take full action on it? Do you think that somehow this now gives like a responsibility for this sustainable side of things, that actually it's a little bit what we were talking about. Like you say, yeah, but it's very difficult to reduce 2% of carbon in the air, whatever, and then boom, the entire world reduced 25%. I mean, it's so. Do you think that this could be also a way of showing that maybe it's possible, like politically possible, to be more conscious about this? Or do you think, like, because for me it's something that stays in between, because in another way people now, they really need to get out of this crisis that it will become as well like economical crisis. And then, as you were saying, I'm afraid of the other, so I'm gonna take my car, not gonna take the bus anymore. So in one way there's this thing, but in another way people now have a different focus, that is to survive to this and move on. So do you think that could be actually something that will support movements through more sustainable cities, or that somehow we're going to forget all of this because now we need to find our way to get out of this situation?
I think the crisis is going to be really tough, which will make definitely longing for the good old days. And maybe the good old days are these months of lockdown and not what happened, before that. I mean, definitely we must defend what we want to defend. Bars, friends, getting together, sports, play, games, schoolyards. Definitely, we must defend them. I mean, like with the last drop of our blood. But very many other things are going to be completely seen as useful. But many things are going to, what are we doing this bullshit? But we must decide together what we bring back and we don't bring back. Be aware, no government, no movement, no marketing company is going to decide if we don't push them. Mm-hmm. They have their own agenda. We must create our own agenda that we don't have any as citizens. We must create an agenda based upon the narratives that we have seen. We have seen so many images. We have seen so many scenes. We have seen so many scenarios that we must create a new narrative of what happened this month. So we must create a narrative that is common. So far, we don't have a common narrative because the fear has been blurring the whole thing, and we have been being fearful. We must create a common narrative based upon the images we have seen and the scenes and the scenarios that we have seen, in order to move on to defend what we want to defend and forget about what we don't need anymore.
I mean, now that we are already walking some of those paths, we should know which path we want to walk after.
Definitely, ecology and feminism have all the answers for this. Definitely.
We totally agree with you.
We must put them to work. And I hope
I'm receiving a heads up from Instagram saying that we are reaching 1 hour now, so we really need to shut up. We have 30 seconds now.
Bye-bye.
But I really want to thank you and Bazurama, because I mean, for me, I would continue this for at least 3 or 4 beers more. So we hope that
chatting each other. You know everything.